For today's cup of coffee, we're going to start out with the bludgeoning
Again.
of the youngest kid. It's a daily thing. The beatings will continue until morale improves. And it shows no sign of improving.
Exactly, so it's fine.
Hey, I feel so much better. I am one kidney stone down.
What did you do, Joe? What did you do?
So it's
what did you do? I saw those texts.
I sent a picture.
Saw those texts, Joe. What did you do?
I sent a picture to Joe Schmo, and he made memes on the kidney stone, which were just hilarious.
God.
I mean, who would have? I mean, I was going to show a picture. I was going to insert a picture, and youngest kid's like, "No, that's disgusting. Don't do that."
That is.
I was proud of it. It's rather impressive, you have to admit. Placed beside the penny. Yeah, I did that for scale. I've had to do these things before.
It was large by kidney stone standards.
Yeah. So I feel much better. Tired. I feel tired. But anyhow, this is going to end up.
Still got 2 more to pass.
Yeah, and they haven't even started. So yeah, planning for the future. This is going to end up this mini series as far as witches. Who were they? How did they come to be? All this stuff. We went into the Hammer of Witches yesterday. And so this one I'm not, because it disturbed Kid greatly.
It upset me. It highly upset me.
And so with this final installment, we are going to be talking about the Salem witch trials. And so as far as the methods of torture, I'm not going to go into that. But I do have it's a blog post that I found that is really good. I will include that in the description box. And it has pictures of some of these implements, in addition to short descriptions of how they were used, what they did. And so there were others. There were lots of others. Now, some of these were used in Salem, but a lot of them were just used in Europe as well. It wasn't just area specific. So, if you've ever watched any of the Saw movies, which I watched one once and hated it and never watched any of the other ones, but a lot of the devices that were featured there were things that were actually like during the Inquisition. So a lot of these things, it wasn't that the writer, just whoever envisioned this, no, they had been for hundreds of years. Which is horrifying.
He did implement some original designs.
Did he do? Based on the ones that already were. Because it's always nice to come up with new ways to torture humans. Mm-hmm. You know, these are the same people that as kids sit around and pull the wings off flies.
I mean, he created a device that, it was like this collar thing that had lasers shooting out from the top of it. And the lasers would slowly get closer and closer to your face, and it's all around, and then it would eventually peel,
I will tell you
peel
something.
down your head and make it fall open like a bloomin' onion.
There is such a thing as creativity, and then there's such a thing as a depraved mind. And honestly, it makes you wonder about the spiritual condition and the mental health condition of an individual who would sit around and design something like that. For real.
I mean, maybe it's cathartic. Maybe it's cathartic for them.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe it is to create something for fantasy rather than somebody doing that in reality. My God.
Yeah.
We have enough people that... Anyhow, Salem witch trials. This is going to be PG-13, maybe. I don't know. I'll probably put, a content warning on it because that people... Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff does bother people greatly because they can envision it.
Right.
So, yeah. The Salem witch trials were a series of hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February of 1692 and May of 1693. And... So it's also one of those, I took this from Wiki, I also will put those references in there too. More than 200 people were accused. Now of those 200, 30 were found guilty, 19 of whom were executed by hanging, 14 women and 5 men.
Oh, that's lovely.
So, well, that's still a whole hell of a lot better than,
No, I understand that, but that's just...
Well, it's better than it was in the witch hunts in Europe. Let's put it that way. All right, so
Still bad.
one of the men, this one was interesting. Giles Corey was pressed to death for refusing to plead,
Yeah, I've heard
and
about
at
that.
least 5 people died in jail. Now the pressing was they had, and he was, God love him, he was a snarky little shit.
He was like, throw more stones.
Absolutely. They put him on the ground, they put a board on him, and then they would put these heavy stones and while he was being slowly crushed to death. And yes, he would tell them, it's like, put another one on there, put another one on there. Because he was innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And, who could do that? Who could stand there? And that amazes me. Anyhow, arrests were made in numerous towns beyond Salem and Salem Village. The episode is one of colonial America's most notorious cases of mass hysteria, and it has been used in political rhetoric and popular literature as a vivid cautionary tale about the dangers of isolationism, religious extremism, false accusations, and lapses in due process. And we're seeing this repeated in our world today.
Yeah, we are.
And, okay, is not unique, but a colonial American example of a much broader phenomenon of the witch trials which took place in Europe. Many historians consider the lasting effects of the trials to have been highly influential in United States history. According to historian George Lincoln Burr, quote, the Salem witchcraft was the rock on which the theocracy shattered, end quote. And I like that because that is the reason we have separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, even as far as somebody who is a person of faith, I have no problem with that. Because, and this is the prime example, there are people's belief systems ebb and flow. And you certainly do not want a government based on the whims of somebody's religious beliefs at that time.
Right.
Because stuff like this happens. So,
absolutely.
And prior to the constitutional turmoil of 1680s, the Massachusetts government had been dominated by the conservative Puritan secular leaders. People of Salem were Puritans who opposed many of the traditions of the Church of England and established several of the earliest colonies in New England with the intention to build a society based on their religious beliefs. Now, the Puritans, they were Calvinist. Calvin was the gentleman who came up with this, and they are Protestants, and very harsh. Basically, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you can't work, you starve.
Yep.
I mean, some of the other ones can throw you a few crumbs, but in some ways it was a matter of survival of the fittest, which is
disgusting.
It is disgusting because that is not what Christ taught. So that's another thing that amazes me on all these things. Several Christian ministers had attempted to work for Salem. Let's see, did I get to the point where they had intended to build a society based on their religious beliefs?
I don't think you did. Maybe you should have highlighted it.
I probably should have. Anyhow, the people of Salem were Puritans who opposed many of the traditions of the Church of England. This was created by Henry VIII because the Catholic Church wouldn't let him divorce his people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so he created his own church, and then he started beheading people.
Love that.
That's another cut. Yeah. So anyhow, the Puritans, they didn't agree with that. So that was where they got into the Calvinism. I don't understand this.
God,
anyhow, several Christian...
It's despicable. It's disturbing. I don't
several
like this.
Christian ministers attempted to work for Salem, but most quit due to non-payment by the community. Because if you're going to be a minister full-time and do all the things that you deserve to be, paid. Yeah. There was a gentleman who came in, his name was Samuel Paris, who was chosen by the community to be their minister in spite of the objections of the Providence. And on June 18th of 1689, the villagers agreed to hire Paris for £66 annually. And 1/3 was to be paid in money and the other 2/3 in provisions and to use the parsonage. Now, in October 10th of 1689, however, they raised his benefits, voting to grant him the deed to the parsonage and 2 acres of land. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but this conflicted with the 1681 village resolution, which stated, "It shall not be lawful for the inhabitants of this village to convey the houses or lands or any other concerns belonging to the ministry to any particular persons or person, not for any cause by vote or other ways." So in other words, it's sort of like the Methodists, you know, how the pastors will come in, they'll stay in the parsonage, and then, you know, circuit riders are what they call them, then they're sent to another church.
Yeah.
They don't own the parsonage. That belongs to the community. But with Dude here, no, they let him have that stuff. And so they had already broken their own laws.
Yeah.
So these people that's sitting in judgment of others are legally criminal.
Yeah, the hypocrisy.
Well, yeah. And so Reverend Paris did not seem to be able to settle his parishioners' disputes. And what he did, well, because he stirred up more strife. He was a shit stirrer, and that's all you can say.
Yeah.
And by deliberately seeking out uniquitous, that was a new word for me, behavior. And these are people that are supposed to be intellectual and curious. And so the avant-garde of academia, basically. In other words, people that thought as he did. It's sort of like the emperor's new clothes. So if you
Sort of
can't,
like Hitler.
if you can't see this, then you're not one of us. You're less than. That's how. Is a shyster is another one. So in his congregation and making church members in good standing suffer public penance for small infractions. You remember we talking about the public stocks and stuff the other day?
Yes.
So that can be considered public penance. That or you have to get out in the town square and announce what your particular sin was.
It's no one else's damn business.
Absolutely. He contributed significantly to the tension within the village. Well, no kidding.
Yeah.
The slightest little thing, and you got to stand out there and make it, proclaim this. Okay, and its bickering increased unabated. So, like I said, division, strife. This is why people like that, you're supposed to run them out of the community.
Yeah.
In 1668, there was a publication called Against Modern Sadduceeism, and that's referring to the Sadducees back in Christ's times, which were a sect of priests. Joseph Glanville claimed that he could prove the existence of witches and ghosts of the supernatural realm. Is there a ghost that is not of a supernatural realm?
Apparently to them, which is the God.
Anyhow,
stuff out of their ass.
Glanville had wrote about the denial of the bodily resurrection and the supernatural spirits. I have no idea what that even means. In his treatise, Glanville claimed that imaginative and creative men, that's that word, that is that word that we used here a minute ago, should believe in witches and apparitions if they doubted the reality of spirits. They not only denied demons, but also God. Now, that's some circular logic right there.
Yeah.
Glanville wanted to prove that the supernatural could not be denied and that those who did deny apparitions were considered heretics because it also disproved their belief in angels.
They're just literally throwing shit and seeing if it sticks somehow.
Oh, yeah, a lot of it stuck. Works by men such as Glanville and Cotton Mather.
Even if it contradicts their own words.
They tried to prove that demons were alive. Now, remember Cotton Mather's name. The people of Salem were Puritans who opposed many of the traditions of the Church of England, established several of the earliest colonies in New England with the intention to build a society based on religious beliefs. The basis of which allegations had been planted in the Puritans who brought these fallacies with them to America. So they had already been steeped in this stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Cotton Mather, a minister of Boston's North Church, was a prolific publisher of pamphlets, including some that expressed his belief in witchcraft. In his book, Memorable Providences Relating to Witchcrafts and Possessions, sounds like he's a little obsessed, doesn't it?
Just a little. I'm not happy with this
Mather described his oracle observations. That means that he had seen them. And how stupendous witchcraft had affected the children of Boston Mason John Goodwin. So by his own personal experiences, he has seen these things.
Right.
Mather
how credible is his own personal experience?
Well, considering that he's got some kind of a fixation with witchcraft and possession,
maybe
that tells
he was practicing it.
I don't know. Maybe he thought he was another one that thought that the witches had stole the penises.
Maybe
it's a teeny weeny club right there.
Baby carrots in the comments, please. Baby carrots.
Mather illustrates how the Goodwin's eldest child had been tempted by the devil and had stolen linen from the washerwoman Goody Glover.
What kind of name is Goody Glover?
Oh, who in the hell thinks that a small child that steals, clothes when they're being washed is washed as the devil? No, it's called kid.
Yeah.
Glover, of Irish Catholic descent, was characterized...
They should have known this person was going to be batshit crazy when they named that child whatever Glover.
Well, back in that time, that was not a bad name. I mean, seriously. This is the washerwoman. Glover was of Irish Catholic descent, so right there you've got Protestants versus Catholics.
Yeah.
Was characterized as a disagreeable old woman and described by her husband as a witch. This may have been why she was accused of casting spells on the Goodwin children.
That's bull.
After the event, 4 out of 6 Goodwin children began to have strange fits, or what some people refer to as the disease of astonishment.
Because they were taught and bribed to.
The manifestations attributed to the disease quickly became associated with witchcraft. Symptoms included neck and back pains, tongues being drawn from their throats, loud random outcries. Other symptoms including having no control over their bodies, such as becoming limber, flapping their arms like birds, or trying to harm others as well as themselves. And it says these symptoms fueled the craze of 1692. Now, some of the other things they were talking about, there was a condition where is it ergo poisoning that comes from the rye?
Mm-hmm.
That after you have had that poisoning for a period of time, another condition takes place. And I think I closed that tab up, unfortunately. And that there were several other maladies, physical maladies, that could have explained some of the behavior. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it could just be an attention-seeking, malicious bullshit.
Most of it was.
Because kids are kids.
But a lot of the kids were also taught by the adults who did not like the people.
Absolutely. Go here and pretend, let's, false witness there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, what happened initially in Salem Village in February of 1692, Betty Paris, age 9, and her cousin Abigail Williams, age 11, the daughter and the niece, respectively, of Reverend Samuel Paris, now he's the shit stirrer,
yeah,
began to have fits described as beyond the power of epileptic fits or natural disease to affect by John Hale, the minister of the nearby town of Beverly. The girls screamed, threw things about the room, uttered strange sounds, crawled under furniture, and contorted themselves into peculiar positions, according to the eyewitness account of Reverend Deodat Lawson, a former minister in Salem. And okay, so you know what this was? Early TikTok. That's exactly what that was.
Apparently, no, but apparently gymnastics wasn't a thing because they contort themselves into odd shapes too.
The girls complained of being pinched and pricked with pins.
Bullshit.
A doctor historically assumed to be William Griggs could find no physical evidence of any ailment. Other young women in the village began to exhibit similar behaviors. When Lawson preached as a guest in the Salem Village Meeting House, he was interrupted several times by the outburst of the afflicted. You are afflicted. Now we know.
No, it's called ADHD. Unmedicated ADHD.
Right. The first three people accused and arrested for allegedly afflicting Betty Paris, Abigail Williams, 12-year-old Ann Putnam Jr.,
I'm about to afflict a can of whoop-ass on some ghosts.
and Elizabeth Hubbard, 14, were Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba, with Tituba being the first. Some historians believe that the accusation by Ann Putnam Jr. suggests that a family feud may have been a major cause of the witch trials. At the time, a vicious rivalry was underway between the Putnam and the Porter families, one which deeply polarized the people of Salem. So it's like the Hatfields and the McCoys in our area.
Yeah.
Citizens would often have heated debates, which escalated into full-fledged fighting based solely on their opinion of the feud. Because people...
Oh, yes, that's a way to gauge a situation properly.
Well, it's a matter of...
letting your emotions get in the way.
How often does this happen? You know, you've been talking about this drama that they do on YouTube and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, well, if you're for this person, you've got to be against this person. And it's like, now I got a Libra rising. I want to know what the actual balance is on this. Who is really telling? You've got his side, her side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. So, anyhow, Good was a destitute woman accused of witchcraft because of her reputation.
Her reputation.
Absolutely. At her trial, she was accused of rejecting Puritan ideals of self-control and discipline when she chose to torment and scorn children instead of leading them towards the path of salvation. Okay, that probably means get off my lawn.
Yeah.
You know, and was it a matter of her scorning these people that were the higher-ups in society?
More than likely.
That their children were being bratty, and she's like, hey, no, take that someplace else.
Oh, yes. Yes, we can't allow people to think for themselves and... Ooh, to have actual...
Poor people ain't supposed to have no rights, don't you know that? That's for the privileged class.
Fuck the privileged class.
We be plebes, baby. We be plebes. That's all right.
I don't care. I can dig them out of the yard.
Sarah Osborne rarely attended church meetings. That made no sense. She was accused of witchcraft because the Puritans believed that Osborne had her own self-interest in mind following her remarriage to an indentured servant. You know what that means? They thought that she had lowered her standard to marry somebody. All right, an indentured servant was someone who allowed themselves to go into basically be a slave for people for a period of time, and that after that period of time was up, that they were supposed to reclaim their individuality as a free man.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't live through it, you know, especially later on as far as the Irish and the Italians and the different nationalities and stuff like that. A lot of those people were indentured servants. So she was obviously an upper crust person according to the Puritans, and how dare you marry somebody that's beneath you. Been there, done that too. So the citizens of the town disapproved of her trying to control her son's inheritance, so there was money involved from her previous marriage. Tituba, an enslaved South American Indian woman from the West Indies, likely became a target because of her ethnic differences for most of the other villagers.
Wow, racism.
Honey, it ain't like it's new. It's not like it's new.
That's fucked up.
She was accused of attracting girls like Abigail Williams and Betty Paris with stories of enchantment from the Malleus Maleficarum. So she's reading them out of this book, and they're saying that she's trying to enchant them with this. How the hell? How do you get
They
that?
literally pulled shit out of their ass, and they literally did not. If they did not like people, if they did not like someone, they're like, "You're a witch. We're going to get rid of you."
Absolutely. These tales about
It has nothing to do with actual justice.
you're gonna have to calm yourself down. You taking over the show, and I can't even tell the tale. These tales about sexual encounters with demons, swaying the minds of men, and fortune telling were said to stimulate the imaginations of girls and made Tituba an obvious target of accusations. So here she's reading what the people were supposed to read to accuse the other people.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Each of these women was a kind of outcast and exhibited many of the character traits typical of the usual suspects of witchcraft accusations. They were left to defend themselves. Brought before the local magistrates on the complaint of witchcraft, they were interrogated for several days, starting on March 1st, 1692, then sent to jail. In March, others were accused of witchcraft, and that included Martha Corey, Dorothy Good, and Rebecca Nurse in Salem Village, Rachel Clinton in nearby Ipswich. I know, I thought that too.
I've always been evil.
I think they said it was an accusation. Martha Corey had expressed skepticism about the credibility of the girl's accusations, and thus drew attention. My God, she actually asked a question.
Yeah.
She questioned the main narrative of the overlords. How dare her? She's got to be a witch.
Yeah. Right.
All right. The charges against her and Rebecca Nurse deeply troubled the community because Martha Corey was a full covenanted member of the church in Salem Village, as was Rebecca Nurse in the church in Salem town. In such upstanding people, such upstanding people could be witches, the townspeople thought then anybody could be a witch. And church membership was no protection from accusation. Now, instead of these people standing up and questioning this, and this is what happens when the elite start targeting certain people, then what do the sheeple do? They topple instead of standing up. Dorothy Good, the daughter of Sarah Good, was only 4 years old, but was not exempted from questioning by the magistrates. Her answers were construed as a confession that implicated her mother. In Ipswich, Rachel Clinton was arrested for witchcraft at the end of March on independent charges and related to the afflictions of the girls in Salem Village. 4-year-old. We've got that going on today too.
That is
We do.
disgusting.
Well, if it's disgusting then, it's disgusting now. How many times have you
Yeah.
had these people, you don't have to listen to your parents. Oh, kids, if your parents are doing this, you tell us. Now, this is some scary shit because we've seen this stuff in times a lot closer to us than the witch trials here.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the legal procedures, after someone concluded that a loss, illness, or death had been caused by witchcraft, the accusers entered a complaint against the alleged witch with the local magistrates. If the complaint was deemed credible, the magistrates had the person arrested and brought in for a public examination, essentially in an interrogation where the magistrates pressed the accused to confess. I like that word pressed. Sometimes that was literally.
Yeah.
If the magistrates at this local level were satisfied that the complaint was well-founded, the prisoner was handed over to be dealt with by a superior court. In 1692, the magistrates opted to wait for the arrival of the new charter and governor, who would establish a court of oyer and terminer to handle these cases. Now, that's old legalese that I'm not familiar with. Mm-hmm. The next step at the superior court level was to summon witnesses before a grand jury. Okay, now as far as this thing, we've got this within the legal system still going on.
Yeah.
What do people do? Oh, make a plea bargain, because if you don't accept this deal and you go to trial, then you can get more time. They're scaring these people into doing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If people,
that's the whole point.
There is no justice system. We have a legal system.
Yeah.
We haven't, and all of it's around monies. A person could be indicted on charges of afflicting with witchcraft. Yes, I'm going to afflict you with the witchcrafts. Or for making an unlawful covenant with the devil. Is there such a thing as a lawful covenant with the devil?
Apparently, according to them, there was, but that's literally...
See, this makes no
insanity.
sense. When you see it and you really... And it's like, these other people, not all of them were illiterate. And I guess they were afraid to question because of what happened to the other ones.
Yeah.
Once indicted, the defendant went to trial sometimes on the same day as in the case of the first person indicted and tried on June 2nd, and that was Bridget Bishop, who was executed 8 days later on June 10th of 1692. But later in 1692, Governor Phipps put a stop to the executions of those charged with witchcraft because his wife had been accused.
Yeah, it was all fun and games until someone of that.
Absolutely, that's how that goes.
That level.
Now, as far as evidence, they had things like spectral evidence. Much but not all of the evidence used against the accused was spectral evidence or the testimony of the afflicted who claimed to see the apparition or the shape of the person who was allegedly inflicting them. I think that's called delusions or hallucinations. Mm-hmm. The theological dispute that ensued about the use of this evidence was based on whether a person had to give permission to the devil for his or her shape to be used to afflict. Opponents claimed that the devil was able to use anyone's shape to afflict people, but the court contended that the devil could not use a person's shape without that person's permission. Therefore, when the afflicted claimed to see the apparition of a specific person, that was accepted as evidence that the accused had been complicit with the devil. My God, now you talk about some mental gymnastics to get to that bullshit.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was just like when they would have those huge conferences, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Yeah. That's just flat out bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. And then there was the touch test. If the accused witch touched the victim while the victim was having a fit, and the fit stopped, observers believed that meant the accused was the person who had afflicted the victim.
That does not make any sense.
Other evidence included the confessions of the accused, testimony by a confessed witch who identified others as witches. Now, we know how that confession came to be. The discovery of poppets. You know what a poppet is, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a voodoo doll, but not quite.
Well, sort of, yeah. Any of that. Blair Witch. Those
are poppets.
Absolutely. Books of palmistry and horoscopes. Now, who in the hell would have been stupid enough to have something like that back then? For real.
Right.
Pots of ointments in the possession of or home of the accused.
So yes, having medical supplies
absolutely
can give you evidence of being a witch.
Yep. An observation of what were called witches' teats on the body of the accused.
How does that? What?
Now look. A witch's teat was said to be a mole or blemish somewhere on the body that was insensitive to touch, and discovery of such insensitive areas was considered de facto evidence of witchcraft. Now, with this, again, this was shaming of women. They would strip them naked. They would do all this stuff, and you've got these nasty old men just...
Everybody has moles on their body.
Sure they do.
Everybody has skin conditions.
Yeah.
Of some sort.
Right.
Literally, they are just shaming these people just for the hell of it.
They were perverts.
Yeah.
That's all you can say. Some of these people were just ridiculous. You know, they got off on this stuff, and they had... shooting fish in a barrel on this. These women couldn't say anything back. And it says, although the last trial was held in May of 1693, that's Hilo trying to tear down the door. He's a large cat. Public response to the events continued. In the decades following the trial, survivor and family members and their supporters sought to establish the innocence of the individuals who were convicted to gain compensation. And in the following centuries, the descendants of those unjustly accused and condemned have sought to honor their memories. Events in Salem and Danvers in 1992 were used to commemorate the trials. In November of 2001, years after the celebration of the 300th anniversary of the trials, the Massachusetts legislature passed an act exonerating all who have been convicted and naming each one innocent. Today, Salem celebrates those who practice Wicca, and tourist attractions such as the Witch Museum are good for the area of the commerce of the area, in addition to providing valuable educational resources.
Good.
So we've got some cool things on that. And it's all well and good that these people were exonerated.
Yes,
but that sure as hell didn't help them at the time when they were suffering.
Nope. Not at all.
So
that's just...
So a little bit of mirth. Breathe. Breathe. You're not breathing.
That really is just...
Oh, no, it could have gotten a lot worse.
Trust me, I've done my research on this before, and it pissed me off just as much as it pisses me off now.
But this was the PG-13 version of this.
I know, but it's still knowing what...
Right.
Knowing more what went on in that really... It's like...
Be upset with what's going on today that's similar.
I am upset about it. That's one reason why it gets me so upset, because I see the stuff that's going on now.
Breathe. Breathe.
Ooh, I just want to be able to teleport and slap each one.
Yeah, but that's an assault charge. You can't do that.
Not if I can teleport.
We're going to be discussing, on a happy note, the witches' pointy hats and or cones of power. And we do have another gnome that has joined our family. He is wearing the cone of power.
Yeah, he's a little pumpkin dude.
This comes from a site called Otherwordly Oracle, and there was another one that I will include that explains a little bit about the pointy hats. And it says the witch's hat actually has a vast history. No, I'm not going to go into the vast history. The ancient Egyptians wore tall, cone-shaped hats, and that could have served a similar purpose to the shape of the pyramids. Mm-hmm. And pointing to the heavens and potentially serving as cone of power to absorb divine energy from above. So in other words, it's sort of like a funnel.
Yeah.
Or that they could have used these pointy hats, stuffed them with herbs and flowers, and put them on the heads of the dead to cover up the smell. That was another theory from the Egyptians. I can see that.
I can see that work. I can see them doing that.
Plague doctor.
Yeah.
It's the beak, nose cone of power.
The beak, you literally you had to stuff herbs and flowers.
Sure. And can you imagine? I don't even know. We'll bubonic plague. We'll wait to do the bubonic plague. Then in China, there were mummified humans that were found in the Tarim Basin, and that's from a lost city called Subishi. Three of the female mummies were wearing tall, black, pointed hats. And one had, one of the Subishi witches, because people are people, also wore a thick black glove, indicating that she hunted with falcons. And the people that saw this, they said that these hats evermore looked like what we think of as a traditional witch's hat.
Right.
Now, medieval Europe in the 1400s, they had lots of things that had these tall, canonical hats, or conical, and they were called hennin. Are you familiar with that? I figured you would. As the popular fashion of the European nobility, those were like the tall, pointy hats, the princess hats that had the veils and stuff attached and all that stuff.
A stereotypical princess hat.
Right. So that could have been another way that they came into that. And then you had woodcuts and other art forms that have helped depict the idea of witches in each and every era.
Yeah.
That's what Hilo says.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. I was not trying to rebuke you
it's fine.
Or shame you, but you were getting more and more escalated, and we would have had a 2-hour video with you screaming, and that would be bad.
It's all good.
So, it is maddening, angering when you hear of these things. But like I told you, be angry and be very concerned about the things that are similar that are going on today.
I am. I very much am.
So,
because that's with people getting canceled online.
Absolutely.
That's literally modern day.
It is. It is.
Except they're not getting killed. Yeah.
Are they not? You can kill somebody, and their body still be up and walking. You can, as far as character assassination, and this is what they're doing.
That's true.
When they're canceling someone to the point that they are a non-person.
Well, they're not taking their actual breath out of them.
Right, but as far as if they, the public squares of today are these social media platform thingies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't participate because I've always been on the edge of society anyhow, for real.
I mean, in technicality, you're participating because you're posting on YouTube, but then again, you don't go on Twitter or Instagram.
No, I don't tweet. The Facebook I got rid of many years ago because I could see what was going on.
I hate Facebook. I really do.
The thing is, people don't know how to use the platform properly and never, ever, ever post pictures of your kids because that is ringing a dinner bell for a pedophile.
Yeah.
And, with the background as corrections officer and different things like that, you learn to use things like Facebook and stuff as a tool. Mm-hmm. Any of that stuff, people will incriminate themselves very easily.
Oh, yeah.
But as far as setting their children up as targets, don't do that. The best thing that you can do is basically get off all of it.
That's why, you never post, thoughts that you wouldn't tell anyone online ever. Right. Because that can literally get you into some trouble.
Oh, you've got people, even if you take a picture on certain things, that there are some folks that are so brilliant that they can tell you the exact location you are by the geography,
that too.
The shadows, all that stuff.
Which is horrifying. And it's no.
So,
nope. It's yes, it's just one single blade of grass. We can find you based on that.
But also when you've got people in positions of power that are unpeopling others that would question their authority, how things are done, that's just horrifying to me.
Yeah.
Because World War II was not that long ago, historically.
No, it wasn't.
So these are my concerns. This has ended this series. My intention between now and then, depending on what goes on in my world, because I never know from second to second. But I would like to move on to Vlad Tepes.
All right.
And it's this, It's just an amazing. He has been kind of, I don't want to say an obsession, but a fascination since I was in elementary school.
Is that the Dracula?
Oh, yeah.
The original Dracula?
He was Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
So we'll go into some of the myths and legends on that. And then we'll go into as far as the Hollywood vampires. Now, I'm not talking about those damn things that sparkle because that's an abomination.
No Twilight.
No Twilight.
No Twilight vampires.
And so we'll be doing some of those.
In this household.
They are. I know these have been a little bit lengthy. I appreciate each and every one of you who took the time to listen to these because they're kind of academic. They're very triggering, but they're also history needs to be remembered.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you've had encounters with paranormal, supernatural, experiences with UFOs, aliens, probing, cryptids,
cats banging on doors,
20-pound cats thrusting their body against a wooden door, local, regional, family myths, legends, what have you, any of those things. If you've got concerns, if you've got prayer requests, email me at cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. And if nobody's told you today that you're loved, believe it or not, you are loved and you are appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Yeah.
And we will see you all on the next cup. Bye.
Subscribe.